That noise that you hear in the background typically is when someone has their cell phone on next to their computer.
Really? I do. Could it be me?
It's you.
Do. I don't think it's
I didn't want to embarrass you.
I think a lot of people have their cell phone next to them.
Nope, it's not true.
Well, I moved it.
If you're muted, you shouldn't have a problem.
Right. Right, Alan.
Rabbi?
Yeah? Shall we start?
Yep, let's start.
Okay.
Ellen, you want to start?
Yeah, we're going to start. Yeah. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. It's Araim Tovim. It's nice to have all of you and all of us together again for this. These conversations about films have been one of the most popular programs that we've been presenting in places of communication that we've been we've had for our congregation since we've gone virtual. But for a number of years now, we've also had film series from some pretty serious film schools in Israel, and they've attracted a lot of people. One of the beauties of this whole thing is that it is a vehicle for the expression of ideas, learning history, conversations about politics, and the presentation of art in ways that we can't find other medium to do productively in society these days. Film is sort of like ancient poetry or ancient mythology, and it is the vehicle for conversation and bringing people together. And I know all of you who are on here have experienced that. We're growing lovers of film, I think, through this, and it's opening up different avenues to see the world. So I will say no more. Just welcome to all of you. A very special welcome. We have some guests with us. Lauren, who was Jesse's coach, my coach for the film, and the producer. The producer of the film is with us right now also, and I'm trying to find her. Did she get? Huh?
I'm here.
Jakubowicz,
yes.
They're both Lauren and Claudine have joined us from Los Angeles. And somebody else is here, Tamar Simon, or Simone, who's working with getting Jewish films of Jewish interest to the Jewish public. So welcome to all of you. Ellen is going to be leading this discussion today. So I thank you, Ellen, and again, in advance, I thank you, Lisa, for the work that you do in helping put this together. Welcome, everybody, and let's get started.
Thank you.
Lisa?
Thank you.
Elisa?
Yes.
We can't hear you. Unmute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you all for coming. I want to thank especially the Popkins. I believe Joan Popkin is present, who sponsored this month of virtual programming. All of you should be muted, but if you are not, please make sure you are muted. And we're going to have our two guests with us for about 45 minutes. We can ask them some questions, and then after that, they have to leave, but we can all stay on and ask each other or speak further. Okay, Ellen, over to you.
Thank you. So welcome, everybody. It's nice to have all of you with us this afternoon. I just wanted to start by just taking a look at the picture and the history. How many of you, put your hands up, knew that Marcel Marceau was Jewish and that he was part of the resistance? I see heads, bobbleheads going, didn't know. I didn't know either. I thought this was just an amazing piece of history that really needed to be told. To me, this film is a very sensitive portrayal of a real human being, and bringing a story to life as a result of the efforts of many people, including Claudine, including Lauren, and including Claudine's husband, who was the writer and the director of the film. I want to thank Tamar again, because she was wonderful to work with in helping orchestrate today's program. We're going to take a little different approach today than we normally do during our conversations. Many of you were good enough to watch the film a couple of days in advance, not just last night, and submit some questions. And we've consolidated those questions along with some others that Elisa and I had into groupings. We are going to start by posing questions after we introduce our two guests, and they'll respond. Now, if you have any questions that you think of or anything you would like to ask or add, please put it in the chat box. And if we have time at the end, we'll address them. And if not, we'll certainly address them after Claudine and Lauren leave us. So, Elisa?
Elisa, you're muted.
I'm so not used to being muted. I'm sorry. So I have the pleasure of welcoming and introducing Claudine. Prior to becoming a producer, Claudine, who was Atlanta-born and Venezuelan-raised, worked as a graphic designer for several multinational advertising companies, including J. Walter Thompson. Prior to that, she specialized in designing theatrical movie posters and TV advertising. In addition to Resistance, Claudine produced Hands of Stone, which premiered in 2016 and received a 15-minute standing ovation. She and Jonathan have 2 children and live in California.
One children,
Ellen.
but
Pardon?
one daughter.
Oh,
not yet.
sorry about that. Someone got that info wrong. Go ahead, Ellen, you need to unmute. Ellen, you have to unmute.
So I'd like to welcome Lauren. Lauren is an actor, a mime coach, a movement coach. He's a graduate of Marcel Marceau's Paris International School of Mime Drama. He studied with Marcel for 3 years, and he's continued to study the life of Marcel Marceau for over 30 years. Lauren runs his own school in California where he coaches and choreographs mime and character movement for Hollywood films, TV, and commercial productions. And he trains actors in a variety of physical performers for stage and live performances, including Cirque du Soleil. And Elisa is going to begin asking some of the questions.
So Claudine, we're going to start with you. A lot of people have questions about the location. So how were the locations for the filming selected? The challenges, I'm just going to give you all of it so you can answer all of
Okay.
it. The challenges that were inherent in them, the crew you brought with you, and how you found the local production team. So I know that's a lot to answer, but.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for the invitation. I'm very honored to be part of this conversation. And thank you everyone who saw Resistance. We're really happy. Tell your friends, your family. We're very proud of the film. You know, when we started putting together the production of the film, as some of you may know, Jonathan, who's the writer, director, is my husband, and we work together. I produce his films. So when this entire process of production started, you know, Germany was not really the first place that came to mind to us to shoot this film. And we initially, Jonathan started casting the film, and there was a German actor called Matthias Schweinhofer, which Jonathan really liked for the role of Klaus Barbie. And Jonathan sent the script to him, and you know, he thought he was perfect for the film, and the conversation started. He ended up being, you know, accepting the role. And Matthias has a production company called Pantaleon Films, from which it produces most of his films in Germany, all his films in Germany. And Matthias is a very famous, well-known comedian actor in Germany. So it kind of everything came together where we said, you know, Matthias said, you know, I have a production company, why don't we film in Germany? And everything kind of fused together. One of the challenges is that Germany was very much destroyed during the war. So it wasn't period wise. And it was, you know, the first thing that came into our mind was, how do we find all of these locations to, for it to look like France, you know, during the 40s. And one of the places that was not, you know, surprisingly destroyed during the war was Czech Republic. And, you know, we started a process of scouting, and our production designer, Thomas Budd, it's part of our creative team for more than 10 years. And our director of photography, Miguel Litin, who's also part of our creative team for more than 10 years. We all kind of sat down and started thinking, you know, what looks like France and during that period, and Czech Republic was one of those places. Also, it has very, it has film incentives and good film crews. But we, and during the process, we applied for the Bavarian Film Fund, which ironically, the Bavarian Film Fund came through, and they have never given their entire fund to one film. And they give 2 million euros to Resistance because they felt that the movie was so important and the message had to be told. And, Bavaria has done a tremendous job Bavaria and Germany has been, been doing constant work to try to make sure that this doesn't happen and again, and that history doesn't repeat itself. And they're constantly, within their society, educating and creating all this awareness. So we were giving the Bavarian Film Fund to shoot Resistance. So part of that whole process is that we also had to shoot in Germany. So it became quite challenging, and we had to divide the shoot in 2 different countries. So what we created was a road map where we started shooting in Prague, and we stopped in 5 cities. And we were kind of like a moving circus. And I would tell everyone, we were the Resistance moving circus, because we would go all the way like on a straight line from we would move forward until we got to Munich, and we stopped in 5 cities. So we went to Czech Republic, we went to Liberec, and then we went to Nuremberg, and then we went to Munich, we went to Krona until we got, all the way ourselves into Munich, which was our last location. And it was quite challenging because we had half of our Czech crew and then half of our German crew. And doing a normal production, you go through all this process where you prepare yourself for many months before you start shooting, and you adapt to the rules and the bureaucracy and everything that you have to go through when you're shooting in a foreign country. But when you all of a sudden you're on the road, and one day you're in Czech Republic and the next day in Germany, the rules change within 24 hours. So there's really no process of adapting. So immediately everything goes up 40% because Czech Republic maintains their own currency, which is the crowns. So it's 40% cheaper than the rest of Europe. And then Germany is quite expensive. So once we kind of like stepped on that, on that line, everything changes. So you have to adapt very quickly in order to keep shooting, because every day counts. But I would say the biggest challenge in general, doing a movie about the Shoah, it's really never easy. And when we crossed Germany, I think it was very interesting to see how the German, a German society reacts to the Holocaust. Because when you grow up hearing, you hear about the Holocaust, you kind of have this idea in your mind of the history of it. But you quite never put yourself in the position of the other side. And when we spoke to our German crew, and you hear the stories of them hearing for the first time when they knew about the history and what their grandparents did, and how how an entire country was the head of the worst criminal history ever done to humanity. It's very interesting to and kind of sad also to also hear from their side how horrifying that part of their history also, and that their families are the biggest criminals in histories. And when you go through all this process and you realize that you're doing a film where both Germans, Czechs, and Latin Americans, Jews are coming together to do this film, it was quite an amazing process, because we could have not done it without each other. And it was quite interesting to kind of have everyone convey in one message.
A question, and I don't know if you can answer this, but several people have asked it. How did you engage Jesse Eisenberg in the role?
Well, Jonathan, Jonathan, when he first started writing the script, he he had done some research, and first of all, he saw Jesse look just like Marcel when he was a young age, so he looked so much like him. But also, you know, seeing doing some research about Jesse, he found out his mother had been a professional clown, and that he grew up seeing his mom painting his face to go to, you know, to perform at kids' birthday parties. So, you know, we thought that was such a similarity to the character, and also because Jesse had had family in the Holocaust as well. So there was a lot of things that connected to each other for the role, and it was really interesting to see that there was so much, you know, so much similarities in that. I think, wait. Sorry, I think I'm being switched to a screen. Oh, there it is. Okay. So Jonathan sent the script to Jesse, and, you know, Jesse, you know, reacted to the role, and an entire process started from there, where they work on the characters on the screen all the way through until the shooting.
Okay. I'm not sure, is everybody seeing this messages? I'm not sure why that is visible.
Yeah.
Is that you? Okay.
It says it's Donna's screen.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll stop it.
there we go.
So
Great.
while we're working
Okay,
up,
Ellen, now you had a question to Lauren.
all right, Lauren, the final scene was filmed in an unfinished arena in Nuremberg, which to me was heart-stopping. Can you tell us a little bit about the challenges, and how was the location chosen, and what were the challenges inherent in filming there? And how
I
did
think
it feel as a Jewish woman to film there?
that's more a Claudine question, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, the Nuremberg Congress Hall was a massive stadium built by Hitler. It's basically a one-man stop show where there was a podium in the middle for him to do all his Nazi rally parties. And when we were looking for a location for the scene, for that specific scene, Jonathan, the director, felt that this was such an amazing place to kind of convey the whole essence of that scene, that we thought that this was just a place that made sense, because we were exercising hatred with the art of survival. And, you know, it was, when we were there, it was just an amazing experience. We were all, you know, crying and seeing this amazing choreography that Lauren had done. And, you know, Lauren, you know, can tell us about that. And one of the things that, you know, a lot of people don't know that we've been telling the story about is that when we were shooting these things, it was the Peacebird shooting at the Tree of Life. And it was just one of those things that we were in shock, because we were here doing a movie about survival and about resilience, and at the same time, Jews were being killed in our country. And it was just, we couldn't even believe that we were experiencing that. So when we were shooting that scene and Jesse was performing, we were all just sobbing and crying, you know, unconsolably, because we thought, you know, we're here in this stadium built by the most horrible person in the world, and we are, you know, celebrating life. And it was quite an experience that I think none of us will ever forget. And that's where, you know, Jonathan and Lauren spoke about the kind of story behind the choreography that we wanted to close the movie with. And Lauren can tell us a little bit about the story of the choreography.
Thank you, Claudine. Before we go there, we're going to circle around back to that scene again at the end a little bit. But Lauren, I have a number of questions that have been asked for you. This is truly a multi-part question. I'm going to start with just a statement. Jesse is a trained actor, but was not trained in the act of mime. In an interview, I heard him remark that as an actor, once you know 2 or 3 things about the person you're portraying that are really representative of that person, you can take, quote, acting shortcuts, meaning use those items and leave the rest to your imagination. And my sense is that may not have happened quite that way here. But the questions are, how long did it take for him to learn the difficult techniques to perform effectively as a mime? And for you to feel that he really had assumed that persona of Marcel? Did you create together, and did you allow any leeway to him to improvise or was he completely choreographed? And were any of the routines performed in the film actually Marcel Marceau's routines? And Lauren, you and I had talked a little bit before about a comment that one of the participants today made, was that most people are uncomfortable with silence. And how do you work that sense of engaging people in a really unique way so that they're no longer uncomfortable with that silence? I know that's a lot. So the stage is yours.
Okay, I'll try and remember all the parts of that question, but feel free to remind me if I leave anything out.
Okay.
When I worked with Jesse, there were, I mean, we covered a lot of ground together. There was the choreography, there was teaching him some mind skills that were going to apply to everything that he was doing. And then there were the parts of the role, certainly far more of the film than not, he was not doing mime. So there was that part of playing the person, Marcel Marceau. I worked with, I started working with Jesse on the choreography itself. We decided, rather than, even though we had a fair amount of time to work together, we decided to jump right into choreography, and for me to show him what it is that we were setting out to do. And then in the process of working on the choreography, step to side by side to cover the mime techniques that he would need to perform that choreography. So we worked on those side by side. It was a big challenge for him because he had no experience in mime. And I find that even actors that I work with that have physical training, some kind of physical specialty in performing, if they've never done mime, they've never done mime. It's something that's really new to anyone who hasn't studied mime before. So we knew that we had a lot to do, but part of being a mime actor is being an actor. And I think one misconception about mime is that it's all in the physical technique, but it's just as important to be a good actor as it is to be good at movement. Otherwise, it just becomes a demonstration of your technique, and it doesn't really move an audience. It doesn't capture an audience and move them like any good acting performance. So the great thing is that Jesse came in with amazing acting skills, and he was able to bring that to acting out the choreography and not just learning the choreography from a movement standpoint. We spent several months together, though, working on all of this. And in the process, we talked a lot about Marcel Marceau as a teacher, as a person, and I tried to give him as broad a view as I could of what I knew about Marceau from my own experience with him and from other things that I knew about him from studying him outside of my own relationship with him. And Jesse, as far as the choreography goes, Jesse stuck mostly very close to the choreography that I created for him. I don't know that even as comfortable as he became with mime, I don't know that he became so comfortable with it that he felt like he could really do a lot of improvisation. But it was important. One reason why I didn't want to just teach him only the choreography, but also the mime skills, was because I wanted him to have some freedom, especially in scenes outside of the mime performance scenes, where he could help bring the character to life by using that movement and the knowledge of what mime is in any way that he felt he wanted to use it as an actor to portray this person who we knew at that point in his life was becoming someone who was going to be this great mime artist. So in parts of the film where Jesse is not doing my choreography, you can see he brought that movement, those movement skills, to his portrayal of the character, and he incorporated in. I mean, a character is always moving. An actor is always using the body in their portrayal of a character. It's not just the dialogue, it's the body as well. So Jesse created the movement of the character, incorporating some of what I taught him in those scenes where he wasn't strictly doing mime performance itself. As far as the choreography itself, it was all original. All of that choreography. We didn't use any of Marceau's actual choreography. We intentionally didn't do that. But what we tried to do was to give the impression that that these were things Marceau could have created. So I was very careful to use his style, his individual style as a mime actor, and the technique that was the foundation of his performance. I used those to create new choreography so that it could look like Marceau's choreography. And especially for people who know Marceau very well and his work very well, it would look like something that he could have created. I guess the last thing you asked me was about silence and people becoming comfortable with silence. I don't know if that question was meant to address the performer or the audience. But, you know, when I auditioned for Marceau's school, it was a multi-day audition, and the last thing on the last day, or one of the last things on the last day, was where Mr. Marceau himself would give the student an improvisation. He would give us a subject of the improvisation, and we would have about a minute to think about it. And then we had to get up in front of him and several other professors and improvise in mime something based on what they gave us. And I heard students coming out of the audition saying, oh, they gave me this, or they gave me that. And I didn't know what I was going to be asked to do. And when I went in for my audition, Mr. Marceau gave me the topic silence. That was what he gave me to audition with. So in one, as a still relatively new student of mime, I had 1 minute to figure out how to show Marcel Marceau what silence meant to me. And that was a lot of pressure. And I think I did something at that point that I think 3 years later at the end of the school, I would have done very, very differently, because my idea before I learned all about mime, what silence was a bit different than what it was once I came to know this art of silence very well and to know what it meant to Marceau. I think what made me feel differently about it after studying the art form so carefully is that for Marceau, silence is not something that's empty. It's not something to be uncomfortable about. It's what makes a great mime actor is being able to fill the silence with something. It's filled with music, it's filled with emotion, it's filled with poetry, and it's filled with what Marceau used to call the weight of the soul. And that's something that if the mime actor is able to accomplish putting that into the silence, then the audience, who might come in otherwise uncomfortable about sitting through a performance filled with silence, then it becomes filled for them as well. And it's no longer something uncomfortable. It's something shared between the mime performer and the audience. And it's something that's filled with moving things and is no longer something to feel to feel as a nothingness or an emptiness. It's anything but.
Lauren, I could listen to you for forever. This is wonderful. We're going to circle back to you as well, but I know we have a couple of questions for Claudine. Lisa has some.
So Claudine, the child actors who were really wonderful, how were they chosen and how much time did it take to prepare them?
Well, when we started casting, Jonathan, we opened up a very big casting in Czech Republic, trying to find children that could act and had could be part of the film. And one of the things that we did during the casting sessions is that we brought on the children to sing Shalom Aleichem, and when we try to teach these children how to sing it, it was nearly impossible. So we were like, how are we going to do this? When there's so much Jewish culture into the whole acting, it's going to be, quite difficult. So Jonathan told our casting director, is there a Jewish school here that we can go? And she said, yes, of course. There's a Jewish there's a very Jewish community in Czech Republic, and we went to their school, and we started talking to the children, and it was really interesting because it was such a natural conversation, because these kids have been hearing about the Holocaust all their life. Most of the Czech Jewish community, are obviously Holocaust survivors, so it wasn't a stretch to talk about it. And a lot of the children also came to the casting session dressed as children from the war, which is really interesting. And we were like, wow, they're really taking it serious. And we ended up casting an entire group of these kids from the Lauder School of the Czech Republic. And it was kind of a process, because we had to go and talk to the parents and say, hey, can I take your kids for like 3 months with me? Like, I'll bring them back safe. Having a parent have that confidence and to give you your child, it's not an easy thing. I mean, I'm a parent, so I was just like, how are we gonna express ourselves to the parents and tell them that this, the kids are gonna be safe, they're gonna be, we're gonna have a tutor, we have all this program from that. So what we did is that we created a program from them. So we would take them at 2 weeks and then send them a week, and then they would go back another week, and then we did that, we alternated at that. They would do school with us. So we created this like a summer camp. So they would shoot with us, and then we send them to the local places where we were at that moment, because again, we were moving ourselves all the time. And we would send them to do pizza day and movie day, and then we did movie nights. So we created this whole activity days after they shot with us, because shooting with children also has a lot of different rules. There's state, there's, every country varies. So in Czech Republic and in Germany, these laws vary for children to be working on set. So luckily we managed to get a little bit of an extension on it, but children, the normal laws are 5 hours from when children leave their houses when they're on set. So you have to, dress them, makeup, rehearsal, everything in 5 hours, which is nearly impossible. And then you have the light changing and, all these things that normally happen. So it was very challenging. But this kids, it was really interesting, because this kids, when Jonathan said, okay, everybody has to sing, and it was just so normal for them. They knew this song since they were born, so there was no rehearsal needed, and they all grew up together. So their parents were very supportive, and they were like, we want to this is very important for our family, we want our kids to do it. And at the end, the kids didn't want to leave. I would have the parents saying, the kids went, they were like crying every time we would have to send them back. And Bella Ramsey, who plays Elsbeth in the film, became really close to them, even though she didn't speak Czech. Some of them speak a little bit of English, but not that much. They all became really close. And we, when we're shooting at the castle, which is this little town called Krona, the mayor told us, the castle is owned by the city, and they were remodeling it to make it a hotel, kind of like a hostel hotel style. And they said, look, we just finished that, do you guys want to try it? Because we really, it would be great for you guys to stay at a hotel. So all the kids stayed at the castle, and they thought it was amazing, like Harry Potter. And Clemence Pussy, who plays Emma, she was in Harry Potter. So she was like, you guys, like, this is even better than Harry Potter. And every night, like, they had the flashlights and they had a blast in it. But at the same time, they, you know, when they had to do the dramatic scenes, they would tell each other sad things. So they would start crying. And everything that you see there is absolutely natural. These are not trained actors. These are just kids who have a connection to the story. And you know, Jonathan is very good working with kids. Our previous film, Hands of Stone, we work with kids. So he, you know, he has great techniques to bring out this natural instincts with children. And you know, it was we became a family, and Jesse loved the children because, you know, like what like Lauren was explaining, you know, Jesse spent all this time training and with Lauren and creating these choreographies that it's very hard to kind of, he was saying in his interviews that it was kind of hard when he was doing them without any feedback, you know, and he was like, am I doing this right? You know, it becomes a moment where you kind of like also start questioning yourself. And then he started doing this, all the choreographies in front of the children, and what you see is true. These children are just laughing so much at it, and it kind of became a natural synergy the entire scene, because the children were actually reacting to Jesse's miming in such a natural way, and it just became this constant back and forth of feedback from the children's to Jesse and Jesse's children's that made every scene just flow in a very natural way. And you know, parents were always, you know, very grateful, and they would call, you know, call me all the time. I mean, you know how we Jewish parents are. So I was like, you need to call me, and everybody just call me on the phone. Oh, they're okay, they're fine. A lot of the kids were kosher. They had their kosher meals. You know, it was a very, very special thing with these children. They're amazing kids.
One other thing we wanted to ask is the scenes in the snow. You know, what was it really winter? Did you have to create that, or did that exist naturally?
Well, you know, one of the things they say about film is never never do snow, pets, or kids. And we kind of did all of it at the same time. Pets, well, we bring our dog to our shoots, so it rules at you know, children's. I mean, it was, you know, this is the thing about global warming, you know, and I talked to, when people try to dismiss this, I said, you know, it's an actual, this is happening. We were counting on snow in winter in Germany, and we created this entire shoot to, you know, do all these scenes at the end because it was supposed to snow. And all of a sudden, when we get to Munich, there's no snow. I mean, it was freezing, and I thought it would snow. I grew up in the Caribbean, so I was like, this is like -100. How isn't this not snowing? So I was, you know, for me, I had layers and layers of clothes, but for some reason, it just didn't snow. And we had to last minute bring in a company that created fake snow. And the thing in Germany is that they're very, very keen on protecting the ecosystem. So there's a very specific type of cellulose paper snow that you can use, that it has to, within, you know, certain months, it has to dilute itself without causing any harms or chemicals to the forest and everything. So it became a really big challenge, and all the snow that you see, it's all made. So this company spent hours and hours and hours with a hose, just hosing in and creating all the snow. And it's a combination of different materials that are biodegradable, for it not to be harmful for us, for the children, for everyone, for the environment. But it was very challenging.
And how long did it actually take for them to cross the mountains? Was that, you know?
Well, you mean originally, or you mean on the film?
That was a question actually Michelle had asked, so I was just bringing it up. So I don't know how long it actually took the orphans to cross the mountains.
Hello, will we see the movie? Will we see the movie? I did not see
Viva, I have to mute you, but we've already seen the movie, but I'll send you a link, okay? So Michelle Goodwin, are you here, or did you have to leave?
Yes, I meant in real time, like when Marcel was doing this. How long did it take for him to take the kids over the mountain? I tried looking this up online, but I couldn't find it. And then once he said he did several of these missions.
Yeah.
And how did he get from Switzerland back to France? So,
Well, you know,
like, did it take days for him to do this, or just, a day, or did they sleep outside? I mean, I just wanted a little historical background.
well, first of all, they did, every time they did, Marcel did 3 trips, and we know this is, we're telling the story about one of the trips that we know. Every time they did a trip, they did a different route, and because obviously the Nazis would know how they were coming back. It took them several days to cross over. Switzerland at that point had a law where if children would end up in Switzerland, they would bring them in. And there was the Save the Children Foundation in Switzerland, in which the Jewish Boy Scouts of Strasbourg, led by George Loinger, were the ones who were coordinating all these crossings. There's a lot of stories. There was a story that George Loinger himself told us, that they were on a football field, and the children were playing soccer, and then the ball went really far, and then all the children started running and like scattering into the forest and never came back. And what happened was that they crossed over Switzerland. That was one of the techniques they used to kind of like do one of the other crossings. But there's no specific kind, like George Loinger, when we met him, he was 106. Sadly, he passed away at 108. He was very, very lucid, and Jonathan spent many hours with them and with the Loinger family, hearing all these stories. So everything in the movie, we kind of show it in a couple of days, because for creative reasons we can't spend more time than that. But yeah, I mean, there's just very different versions on how they came back, and how many days would be something just quite precise to kind of figure out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ellen, you're muted. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. So the time with Lauren and Claudine is slowly coming to an end. I have just 2 questions. One, very quickly, Claudine, can you tell us a little bit about the Shabbat experience that you created during the filming?
Well, like I mentioned, because of the children were Jewish, their parents made very clear, to keep the children with their traditions as much as I could during this process. And like I said, some children were kosher. They had their kosher meals. Some children, were very conservative, and so we try to maintain a lot of their, what their parents asked us about. And one of the things was to do Shabbat, and we ourselves do Shabbat. I do Shabbat with my daughter every Friday, and it was really interesting because that scene was on Friday was the scene where we were in the castle, and they're talking about moving the children. Was the last day of the shoot in the castle, where the children, one of the group of the children, were going back. And I said, let's do the Shabbat here. And I brought in, the candles, and finding challah in Corona was quite a challenge. We find something similar to it. Then I said, oh, look, you do have challah. And it was quite funny to kind of see the reaction that they realized it actually kind of looks like the challah. And we ended up doing Shabbat there with the entire crew. And a lot of the German crew have never experienced a Shabbat. Like they really didn't even know what it was, or if they heard about it. So it was quite mesmerizing to see all of these different emotions coming by, seeing a bunch of, all these Jewish kids, and also, Jewish crew and Germans and Czech all come together and do a Shabbat. And a lot of them were just like the tears coming out. And Giza Rorik, who plays George Loinger, is also Jewish, and he led the Chamotzi and the Kiddush, and it was beautiful. And the children were, it's one of those really beautiful memories that we have from the shoot.
Super. So we could go on, and I know that both of you have to run. I would like to share a couple of excerpts that I'm sure you've heard, but I wanted to share them with everybody on the call, that really sums up, to me, the essence of Renaissance, of resistance. The great strength of resistance is its remarkable true story basis, bolstered by a top-notch cast and its high-quality production values. Kudos, Claudine. That was from the Movie Geeks, and that's a big
Thank you,
high
thank you.
five, lady.
Yes.
And a
thank you.
reviewer for The Wrap wrote that Jesse's best work comes at the mime's first real public performance, where he dons the traditional white makeup and silently mimes his way through the war itself. Without a single word, he articulates the film's point more movingly than any monologue ever could. Lauren, kudos to you. That says it all. Job well done, an incredible film, and I know everybody is going to encourage their friends and family to see the film. Thank you so very much for joining us today. And we're going to continue our conversation. And if Tamara's there, Tamara, you're welcome to stay with us. And thanks to you again. Bye-bye,
Thank you
Lauren.
very much for having us.
You're
Yes,
very
thank
welcome,
you.
Claudine. We look forward to your next
Thank you
film.
so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
So we are going to continue our conversation. We still have at least, what, about 15 minutes, Lisa?
Yeah, you can go
Do you
longer.
have anything you would like to say before we begin the discussion? Yeah.
Well, I think it's wonderful that this movie has generated so much attention. There's been so many discussions about this. There was the Miami Film Festival, and I think we discussed it. And then tomorrow night, there's going to be another one, another discussion. And I just think it's wonderful. It just gives everybody an opportunity to hear the story and learn what was going on at that particular time, and what an amazing man he was to be able to do this and bring all these children to safety.
And we thought it would be very interesting to take a look behind the scenes, which normally conversations with the filmmakers, the writers, the producers, the actors don't do. And I think Lauren and Claudine were wonderful in sharing their feelings and responding to our questions. So do we have any?
Someone had asked in the chat bar, I'm not, if we had any knowledge of Marcel Marceau's sort of future connection to Judaism, you know, how he led his life. Do you know anything about that? Because oftentimes you have.
No, I don't know that. And I didn't read that anywhere. I do know that
Lauren is still on. Maybe Lauren can, I think he's still
Are
on.
you still on?
I think he,
Yeah, I'm still here.
oh,
Yeah.
good.
Can you tell us a little bit about Marcel Marceau's connection to Judaism, the Jewish people, Israel? You might even want to show us the poster you showed.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Well, actually, yeah. Sorry. Here, I was for everyone who's watching. Before we started the interview today, I showed them that I have, as you can see from some of the things behind me, I have a large collection of items from Marcel Marceau's career that I've been collecting for many years, and it's one of the ways that I study his work. And I my most recent acquisition for my collection is this program from when Marceau performed in Israel in 1966. I especially liked seeing his name written in Hebrew and English on the cover of the program, so I thought that would be a nice thing to show you today. I actually, you know, I know a lot more about Marceau's work than about his personal life. I know that, well, this isn't so much from my personal knowledge of him as from what I've read or heard elsewhere, but that he identified as Jewish, but I think one of the reasons why many people didn't know that he was Jewish was because I don't think it was a very prominent part of his life. I can't speak too specifically to what extent he practiced in his personal life away from where others would have seen it, you know, outside of his family. But I know that also in his work, he tried to, one of the goals of his mime work was to appeal to people universally and to cross the boundaries of religion as well as nationality, language, race, all of the other things that would allow him to appeal to people everywhere in the world, no matter what their background. So I don't know that that diminished his own feeling of being Jewish, but he certainly widened his view and respect for people of all backgrounds so that he could communicate with them no matter where they were coming from. I guess
So I
that
think,
the best
I
could
think
say.
it was very interesting, Lauren, because his name was Mangel, M-A-N-G-E-L.
Ellen, can you turn off your telephone?
It's not on.
Oh.
Nothing's here. Gary was coughing in the far end of the house. I'm
Oh, it's a
sorry.
weird buzzing in the background, actually, but
No, and the fan's not on. So we learned that his name was Mangel, M-A-N-G-E-L, and he changed his name to Marceau, so it would be perceived that he was more French. And that way he could move easily as a member of a resistance throughout, whatever it was he had to do. I think one of the interesting things when he received the Raoul Wallenberg Medal for Humanitarianism in 2001 was the first time he actually made a speech talking about particulars in his life and what was important. He said he would only speak briefly about his own deeds. He forged identity cards with his brother when it was very dangerous. I also forged papers, not only to save Jews and children, but to save Gentiles and Jews, especially Gentiles, because there was a law in Vichy-occupied France to send young French men who were 18, 19 years old to factories in Germany to work for the German army. Then I had the idea to bribe the officials and make people look much younger in their photos. So here is a man who was really involved in lots of different aspects of working the underground to save children and save people in general. Do we have any other questions?
Helene? Grants, go ahead.
Mute you.
Oh, wait, Helene, unmute. She's talking.
Somebody muted me again.
Yeah, I think I did that trying to unmute you. Sorry. Go ahead.
I must have missed something, but I don't recall them saying what happened to his mother. And I was also wondering if it didn't say, was that a director's choice in making the film?
Lauren, do you know that? They mentioned his dad, who perished in Auschwitz, as being really the motivator for his work and the essence of what he became as a mime. But nobody ever mentions his mom.
Well, I don't want to speak for for Jonathan, the director, in addressing why she wasn't mentioned, what became of her wasn't mentioned in the film. But in reality, I know that she survived the war, but I actually know almost nothing of his mother's life after the war. So I don't know if it wasn't mentioned because that was information that wasn't easily available, or if there was another reason that it wasn't mentioned in the film. But I actually, aside from knowing that she survived, I actually know nothing else about what happened to her after the war.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions in the chat box? Lisa, are there any
I had
other
some
questions?
comments. I'm looking. Robin said, predictable. No.
So again, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I think this is a fabulous conversation. We're really pleased. And I wanted to
Elisa,
Yes.
Elisa, just as an observation, I thought one of the most powerful lines in the entire film came right at the beginning. Why do they hate us?
Yeah.
And that just set the stage for everything to follow.
Good point.
There were many powerful, what I would call heart-stopping moments in the film. If you remember the scene on the train.
That was mine. Like, oh.
And the train with when the priest, it was a priest who indicated that they were Jewish, and of course the film where the kids were up in the trees.
That too, yes.
That just made my heart stop. And I think from a production standpoint, they did a fabulous job of conveying, the emotion and the reality of the horror that these children must have faced, which is something that's unfathomable. So our next film is going to be sponsored by the Women's League of B'nai Torah. It's going to be Take My Nose, Please. It's going to be on September 10th, and we're doing it at 7 o'clock in the evening. If you haven't seen it, you really want to see it. You're going to laugh. You may cry a little bit. It'll resonate with everybody. And we're very fortunate that Toby Richmond Steinhardt is going to be our facilitator for that film.
Ellen, where is it available? On what platform?
I think it's Prime.
Okay.
I've sent the information in, so we'll be publicizing it shortly. And we're taking a look at some dates mid-October after Sukkot to continue with our film series with another film. And I want to thank some of you, especially Mark, for your suggestion for a film. We're going to be talking about that as well. Thank you all for joining us.
I want to thank again the Popkins for sponsoring virtually, and in the chat bar there is a link if you also would like to sponsor, or you can call B'nai Torah 561-392-8566. Thank you all.
Stay tuned.
Let me just mention something that Ellen and I spoke about briefly yesterday, and Rabbi and I talked about. There's a movie that's available on HBO Max. I think it might be difficult for a lot of people to see it. It's called An American Pickle, but I'm just curious if any of you have access to HBO Max, because we'd like to recommend it, but obviously don't want the platform to be something that you can't access. So you can email me privately or let me know if that's something you think you would be interested in, because it is a film worth watching. But
we couldn't get it.
Yeah.
You
I
can
know.
download it on your
your
phone,
TV,
send it to
there's
your
an
smart
issue with
TV.
it. I know.
It's not part of HBO. It's part of their enhanced program, Max, that you
Right.
pay for.
Right.
And they're in some war with Roku, as I understand it. But perhaps they will release it on another platform, in the future. So we can look to do that at another time. There's a lot of movies out there.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Stay well. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent.
Ta-ra.
Look at Claire's doll. What is that, Claire? It's cute.
Are we back?
Hello, Helene.
Hi.
Hey, love you.
I love you too. We got sent, what was the name of it's called The Pickle?
An American Pickle. But
An
you need to
American
click
Pickle.
on-
Pickle.
Again,
Okay.
it's
Lisa,
hard to-
I have
yes?
two.
Oh, look at that.
Oh,
They are life-size mannequins. They are the only thing I have left from my daughter's bat mitzvah in 1983, because it was held at a conservative synagogue that did not allow photography. I had 6 of these mannequins throughout the room, and I had 3 live ones, 3 live mimes. 2 of them were moving around the room when people entered. It was a luncheon in the synagogue immediately after the service, so that we kept
No music.
enthusiasm and the feeling of the ceremony. But she wanted something different, because she said everybody has it at the synagogue. They have the same walls, chairs, tables, floor, tablecloths. Everything is always the same, Mom. I don't want mine in the synagogue. I said, you have to. That's the way we believe.
That's what we do, right?
Yeah, this is the way we do it, and you're too young to make that decision. We're making that decision. But if you tell me what you're interested in, I will see what I can do to make the room different. And so one of the mannequins, one of the 3, was seated at one of the guest tables, and she remained stoic for 45 minutes into the luncheon. And then she started moving, and the screams that went up were unbelievable. But then all 3 moved throughout the room for the rest of the time. And the decor was, I think it was black tablecloths with white napkins and 36 red roses coming out of a great big vase.
That's nice that you still have.
You're so creative.
It just came together very easily. It was simple and yet it had a lot. So I went to the supplier of these mannequins on the Monday after the bat mitzvah and said, okay, go for it. How much are they? And fortunately, they have moved with me each time I've moved.
And you can't give them up now.
In one house, they were seated in a pair of chairs by a front window, and everyone thought I always had company. They were the best.
That's cute.
Thank you for asking. But I started in a different location, and then I said, "Wow, I've got the perfect perfect thing to have next to me." The other one is more attractive, but she wasn't cooperating today. Thank you. Sorry to go over time.
Thank you. No, it's cute. I'm glad all you guys came. Everybody enjoyed, I think.
Yes.
Elisa, what's the name of the movie for next time?
The name of the movie for the next time is, well, no, the one with Tony Steinhardt is it something about the nose. What's that one?
Take My Nose, Please.
Take My Nose, Please?
Yes.
Take My Nose, Please. Okay. And that is September 10th, correct? Yes.
Right.
I thought that I was able to get all of the details of Resistance as I watched it. But listening today, I am motivated to see it again, which is a rare thing.
Really? I will tell you, seeing a movie a second time always adds an element that's superior, I think, because you see things, you catch things. I think you should always watch movies if you can a second time. You know, unfortunately.
Oh, well, I'm watching all the classics again.
I'm a chronic learner, so I actually take notes.
Oh, you do? Oh my gosh.
A woman after my own heart.
And then about when I think I've got the important stuff or the things I'm not going to remember that I want to, I just watch the film.
Well,
But yeah, I have all sorts of notes.
Right, that's a good idea because I'll think, I love what they just said. I'm going to remember it. And guess what? I don't, you know, so it's a great idea to do that.
And I thought
Ladies, I'm going to leave. Helene, the lawn service is good enough to wait until we finish to come mow the lawn right outside my window.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Very
Otherwise,
nice.
that would have been a real pickle.
That would
Have
have
a
been
wonderful
Lisa,
day,
thank you,
ladies.
Thank you,
sweetheart. You're a
guys.
wonderful partner. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
Vicki,
you
for
all.
helping, and Michelle. I don't know, Michelle left, so I'll thank her later. But thank you.
Thank her.
We can announce this.
Thank Vicki.
Miss on here.
Hi,
Wait a minute.
Tamara.
Alyssa?
Nice meeting you. Yeah,
Alyssa, it's Leslie Nyman. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Leslie. What's up?
Oh, I wanted to just let you know about something. There's something called High Flicks. I don't know if you heard about it. It's
Hi,
a brand,
Flicks?
High, C-H-A-I,
Right.
Flicks, but it's spelled F-L-I-C-K-S.
Okay.
Highflix.com. It's a brand new platform. It started on last Wednesday,
Oh,
and they have 150 films, both Israeli, Hebrew, and English films. Some of them are all English, some of them are Hebrew with English subtitles, and it's an amazing new platform. And we signed up for it. The first 14 days, I think, it's a free trial. And then after that, it's $5.99 a month.
That's not bad. Okay, I wrote it down. Highflix. That's good to know. And I'll share it with Ellen. I think she's already.
Right. Why don't you let people know about it? It's amazing.
Thank you so much. Thank you for telling me. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.